Let's talk about radiologist burnout. You hear about it all the time. It's a huge topic in healthcare. But when you actually start digging into the numbers, well, the data is a complete mess. It seems like nobody can agree on how big the problem really is. So today, we're going to dive in and solve this measurement mystery.
Okay, look at this number. Some studies out there report a burnout rate for radiologists as high as 85%. 85. That's a staggering figure. It suggests there's this massive, overwhelming crisis happening in the field.
But then you find other studies, totally legitimate, also peer-reviewed, that report a burnout rate as low as 5%. Just 5. That's a dramatically different picture, right? It's not even in the same ballpark. So what on earth is going on here? And that, right there, is the central question we're trying to answer. How can studies looking at the very same profession come up with such wildly different answers? Is one of them right and the other one wrong? Or is there something else at play?
To get to the bottom of this burnout contradiction, we're going to lean on a major meta-analysis that just came out in 2024. The researchers did the hard work. They gathered up data from 57 different studies on radiologist burnout, going all the way back to 1990. We're talking data from over 11,000 radiologists, all to figure out what was really going on.
So, first things first, let's get on the same page. The World Health Organization is really clear about this. Burnout is not some kind of personal failure. It's an occupational phenomenon. It's a direct result of chronic stress at work, and it's typically understood through 3 key dimensions, which you'll see are absolutely crucial to our investigation.
Okay, so to solve the mystery of those numbers, the 85% versus the 5%, we have to venture into what I'm calling the measurement maze. Because the answer isn't just in what is being measured, but how it's being measured. So here are the main tools of the trade, so to speak. The most common one you'll see is the Maslach Burnout Inventory, or MBI. But there are others too, like the Stanford Professional Fulfillment Index, and even just simple single-question surveys. The key thing to remember is they don't all measure burnout in the exact same way.
And this is where we really need to focus our attention. The MBI is kind of the gold standard. It's the most common tool used in all these studies. But, and this is a big but, the meta-analysis reveals it's also the main culprit, the primary source of all that confusion and all that wild variation in the data.
So to really crack this case, we need to pop the hood and see how the MBI actually works. We've got to deconstruct this thing.
Remember those 3 dimensions we mentioned? The MBI measures all of them. So you've got emotional exhaustion. That's that feeling of just being completely wiped out, drained by your work. Then there's depersonalization. That's a sense of cynicism or just feeling mentally distant from your job. And finally, a feeling of low personal accomplishment, where you feel like you're just not effective anymore.
And here it is. This is the smoking gun, the critical clue that solves the whole mystery. It's not about the tool itself, but how researchers interpret the results. Some studies have a really broad definition. They say you're burned out if you score high on any one of those 3 dimensions. But other studies are way stricter. They say you're only burned out if you score high on all 3.
So, the meta-analysis went back and reanalyzed everything, but this time they grouped the studies by which definition they used for burnout. And let me tell you, the verdict from the data is striking.
This chart says it all. Just look. When studies define burnout as a high score on just one little dimension, the average burnout rate is 57%. Now, when they require at least 2 dimensions, that number drops to 42%. And then look at the far right. When a study says you have to have high scores on all 3 dimensions, the rate absolutely plummets to just 19%. Suddenly, that huge range we saw at the beginning, it makes perfect sense.
So here's the bottom line. The contradiction we saw wasn't about whether burnout is real or not. Of course it's real. The mystery was just an illusion, and it was created entirely by inconsistent measurement. You could take the exact same group of radiologists and slap a 57% burnout rate on them, or a 19% rate, all depending on which definition the researcher decided to use.
And all of this leads to the real core argument of the research. We have got to stop thinking about burnout as a simple yes or no question. It's not a switch you just flip on or off. It's not binary.
You know, the study's authors put it perfectly. They said that forcing this really complex, varied experience into a simple yes/no box. Yeah, it might be practical, but it just oversimplifies what's really going on. It completely misses the nuance.
And this is where a much smarter, more nuanced approach comes in. Instead of just one big burnout label, the research suggests looking at different profiles. For example, an overextended radiologist might just have high exhaustion, and that's it.
A disengaged one might only be experiencing high cynicism, and someone labeled ineffective might just feel a low sense of accomplishment without the other two. These are all very distinct problems, and they probably need very different solutions.
So, if the old way is flawed, what's a better way to measure and actually understand this problem? Well, the study offers some really clear recommendations.
The researchers basically say a few things. For a quick, consistent snapshot, maybe other tools like the Stanford PFI are better because they give you less variable results. But here's the most important part. Institutions should stop just chasing a single, headline-grabbing number. Instead, they should report the scores for each dimension separately and use those nuanced profiles to really get a handle on the specific challenges their teams are facing.
And here's why this matters so much in the real world. It's all about targeted interventions. Think about it. An overextended radiologist who's just exhausted might need changes to their workload or better efficiency tools. But a disengaged radiologist who feels cynical and disconnected, they might need something totally different, like initiatives that build teamwork and a sense of mission. A one-size-fits-all solution just isn't going to work. So ultimately, this whole investigation leads us to a much more powerful question. Perhaps the goal shouldn't be to find one single definitive number for burnout. Maybe we need to shift the entire conversation and go from asking, "Are you burned out?" to asking a much more helpful and much more human question. How are you burned out?